Coming off a post-war financial boost of the late 1940s, the 1950s was a time of expansion for St. Matthew's. The baby boom was in full swing, and now with over 500 souls, the Little Brown Church was suddenly too little for this growing congregation. In 1951, the congregation voted to immediately begin building and financing their own original church building. A bold task for a relatively young congregation with scrappy, humble beginnings. They had been saving for the last 6 years to make it happen.
Of course, we had very devout people in the beginning, but I see we had more people coming to this church after a while.
On May 25th, 1952, just about 1 year after the congregation voted to build, the new church building was finished and being dedicated to the glory of God. Members and visitors lined up outside for an unlocking of the door ceremony, followed by Pastor Paustian leading God's people into the building for the very first time.
It was beautiful, everything was so different than the Little Brown Church,
Coming from that little tiny church and then to have this magnificent edifice, it was like, oh my goodness, we were just in awe, just couldn't take it all in.
The day was celebrated with 3 distinct worship services, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening. Pastor Paustian marked the monumental occasion with this message.
Our hearts are thrilled with great joy today as we behold a glorious task completed. Our own house of worship and all its parts are being dedicated this day to the glory of God.
In a 1952 article, the Oconomowoc Enterprise described the beautiful house of worship as being Old English and Gothic architecture that, quote, enhanced the neighborhood in which it was placed. On the inside, the Enterprise noted its timber ceiling construction, European features, and, quote, stone floor and beamed ceiling of the chancel, which are true medieval materials used to depict a chancel of old. Along with the growing church was a growing Christian day school. St. Matthew's called a second teacher for the first time in its history, and not just any teacher. It was the daughter of St. Matthew's current teacher at that time. Miss Lois Blasi taught the lower grades, and her father, Mr. Otto Blasi, taught the upper grades.
He was just a fantastic man. I just adored him. So I loved going to school. I loved being around him. I loved learning from him.
Mr. Blasi was great on health. So he would talk a lot about health, and that's what got me interested in healthy eating and living. And I guess that always stuck with me, and even till today.
He was a beekeeper. He did that in the summer when he wasn't teaching. And they grew a lot of their own food growing up in the Depression. And he had cattle, and he had, for their milk, they were very self-sufficient out in Lebanon.
And then every day when school ended, we all had to clean our own desks. There was no janitor. And the worst part, but when you do the blackboard, you go outside and you shake the erasers out in the wind outside, but that dust came all over you.
Another thing that we kids did, the boys, we would have to go downstairs and take the clinkers out of the furnace and haul them on the back of the school.
The clinkers? That was what was left over from the burning of the coal. That's what we called it. I don't know if that's the legitimate term.
That was always a fun job. We felt that, important.
I had a lot of respect for Mr. Blasi, and I'm sure the rest of the students did too. He just was a very personable, warm individual, amicable.
He was just a wise man, and I did also appreciate the wisdom that he imparted. He would make lessons come alive.
After the unforgettable church building project and the school's growth of the 1950s, the gospel ministry of this once unassuming congregation continued to build steam. The momentum would carry on into the succeeding decade, with God leading his people to another event of exponential consequences in the early 60s.